IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast supported by Pragati, a flagship media initiative of the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like to bring fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and an Indian perspective to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of All Things Policy. Before I begin, the Takshashila Institution is offering a 12-week public policy course in any of the following streams of your choice that includes public policy, health and life sciences, tech and policy, and defense and foreign affairs. It is all online and can be taken from anywhere. The cohort begins on September 4th. So if you are interested in applying and want to know more details, visit www.takshashila.org.in/courses. Now coming to today's episode, the Chinese People's Liberation Army, or the PLA, celebrated its 94th founding anniversary on August 1st. The PLA is a unified organization of China's land, sea, and air forces, and it is one of the largest military forces in the world. The PLA traces its roots to the 1927 Nanchang uprising of the communists against the nationalists. Now, under Xi Jinping, it has undertaken military reforms intended to make it fully mechanized by 2020, informatized by 2035, and a world-class force by 2049. Now, we will be discussing how the strengthening of PLA forces is likely to impact India's border dispute with China. So to discuss this, I have with me Suyash Desai, a research analyst at the China Studies program in Takshashila Institution, who recently wrote an article on this in the Times of India. So welcome, Suyash.
Thanks, Hamira. Thanks for having me.
So the first question I want to ask you is, what are the main ways in which China is modernizing its PLA forces?
So the PLA modernization is happening from past 2 decades, but it has speeded up, or it had the frequency and the speed of modernization has dramatically increased since 2012, especially after 2015 under Xi's rule. So Xi initiated military reforms. She initiated reforms in general in different sectors, and military reforms in particular, with a goal which you have rightly pointed out and which he mentioned in the 2017 Party Congress of mechanization of the PLA by 2020, informatization of the PLA by 2035, and making the PLA a world-class force by 2049. So what is a world-class force? That is something that Xi Jinping has not defined yet, or China has not defined yet. But an educated guess is that a world-class force is equivalent or on par with the forces of the United States, UK, Russia, France, and even up to an extent in some sectors with the Indian armed forces. So what are these reforms and what modernization is happening? Basically, these reforms can be broadly divided into bureaucratic and force reforms. Bureaucratic reforms is a shake-up of military bureaucracy, which has been in command of the armed forces. Military bureaucracy meaning the CMC, Central Military Commission, which has an oversight on the PLA, or which is the command that rules PLA. Xi Jinping is the chairman of the Central Military Commission. So in a nutshell, there were big bureaucratic organizations lumping money for many decades. She shake them up and made into smaller commissions, and he's having a direct oversight over most of these 15 smaller commissions. That's a bureaucratic reform. But more interesting part is the military or the force structure reforms, which are in the form of making army independent from the bureaucracy. Previously, bureaucracy and army had a similar office, shared the same structure, which made army more powerful. Improving force structure and firepower within Air Force and the Navy by commissioning newer vessels, by giving them newer goals like from near seas to far seas mission, and following up with that goal by commissioning similar weapons. For example, for far sea, we need longer ranged vessels. which is what China is doing under Xi. Apart from these three main forces, the second artillery corps, which is now the rocket force. Previously, it was a group responsible for China's nuclear and conventional missiles. Now is upgraded into a full force. So that shows the importance of deterrence, importance of this force in establishing strategic deterrence. Similarly, on the last day of 2015, when China upgraded the PLARF, they also created something called as PLA SSF, which is Strategic Support Force. This force is responsible for China's cyber and space warfare. Establishing a separate force shows the importance that Xi or China under Xi gives to the unconventional warfare, which would be the future, and which would be the future of the warfare going ahead. And this is also implied by the second objective, that is informatization of PLA by 2035. And finally, for any war, logistics is very important. She also made, in 2016, China created a new force called as Joint Logistics Support Force, which is responsible for logistics, providing logistics to all other forces. This logistics force was tested in Wuhan pandemic. This logistics force was also tested in China-India military standoff, and primary reports indicate that they have done a commendable job, especially during the outbreak of a pandemic. So in a nutshell, or summarizing what I have said, there are four major forces and two sub-forces under the new reforms that she committed. She initiated since 2015. PLA Ground Force, PLA Air Force, PLA Navy, PLA Rocket Force, PLA SSF, and PLA JLSF, Joint Logistics Support Force. Newer weapons are also being commissioned. Manoj and I are working on a paper right now. A part of it is available in a slide doc, which is on the Takshashila website, published in March 2020, on how modernization is happening. And right now we are working on a paper on how force structure is being changed, how newer weapons are being commissioned. So these are all the major changes that are happening in the PLA. So broadly, bureaucratic reform, force reform, commissioning new weapons, changes in how training has to be done, and with specific goals in mind, that is 2020, 2035, 2050, 2049. One important point before we move on to the next question, Amira, that 2020 deadline of mechanization has not yet been achieved. That is because of the pandemic, maybe, and also because these changes require some time. So it is 2 phases of the mechanization process are completed by 2020. Third phase is right now under process and would most likely be completed by 2022. So even if there are these watertight deadlines, I am not sure if PLA will be able to attain those deadlines. And that is why recently in 2020, I think in November 2020, she came up with another important date, that is 2027. So 2020, as you have pointed out in your introduction, 1927 is when PLA was formed. So she made another important deadline per se in 2027, saying that this is an important deadline just to speed up the process. This is not a deadline in isolation per se, but this is a warning to the PLA to speed up and not to lag in the reforms process.
Yeah. So, on that note, what are the specific things that China, particularly Xi Jinping, has done with regard to its Air Force and Navy, say, in the Indo-Pacific region?
Thanks, Amira. That's a very good question. I think as you have already pointed out, Air Force and Navy has given special importance because China is a continental power. China was a continental power, and a lot of attention went to the ground forces. So, under the current reform process, first of all, in 2013, the Science of Military Strategy, and in 2015 Defense White Paper, it was mentioned that China should now look to being a blue water navy by protecting overseas interest. I am paraphrasing it. This is what it means. This is not verbatim. So the process literally, as you've pointed out, things started rapidly happening under Xi Jinping. but the process of change was started under Hu Jintao in 2003, 2004 itself. I think in 2005, 2006, they started manufacturing Peace Ark vessels. The Peace Ark vessel, which famously began its first journey in 2008, I think they started manufacturing in 2005, 2006. Its first aircraft carrier was under process from 2005, 2006. 2008, something interesting happened. 2008 is when the China's approach to near seas and far seas changed. Though it was mentioned on paper in 2015, but 2008 is when China started venturing into the Indian Ocean region through its peaceful navigation for anti-piracy operations. So that is where things started changing. Under Xi Jinping, what has happened is now they are specifically saying that we should protect our Farsi interests. Protecting our Farsi interests implies that we should make vessels which are longer ranged vessels, and these are also happening in real time. This is also only not on paper. So what has happened in real time? There are a few things. One, China first time in its history has formed a overseas military post in the Djibouti base in the Indo-Pacific region, in the Western Indian Ocean region. That's point number one. China's research vessels have started coming a lot more frequently into the Indian Ocean region. They are notoriously known for their activities in the South China Sea. If you remember, Amira, correct, in December 2020, a research vessel was found loitering near the Andaman Islands, and the Indian Navy had to push it away or shoo it away. So the research vessels are increasing. Now China is at any given point of time capable of deploying 18 vessels in the Indian Ocean region. So their capabilities have increased. Their experiences is increasing experiences in operating in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific has increased. The priority, of course, is the 3C, Yellow Sea, South China Sea, and East China Sea. But their second priority, along with these three near seas, is now the second priority is the Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific. So, three steps to understand this. One, changes at the policy level, where Xi's speeches and China's document have indicated that there would be a change. This is followed by changes at the capabilities level, where their newer vessels are being created. Also, redundancies are addressed. Redundancies and limitations like extended deployment. So China is suffering from extended deployment because they don't have enough their delivery lines is stretched. So that has been acknowledged, and China is trying to address that. That's point number two. And point number three is that now we are seeing much more inroads into this Western Pacific and Indian Ocean, which gains them a good level of experience. So these are the broad three things that are happening in the Indo-Pacific. These are the broad three PLA activities that are happening in the Indo-Pacific region.
Yeah, thanks for that, Suyash. We'll be taking a small break now, so we'll be back very soon.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, legendary music composer Anu Malik joins Cyrus to share tales from his fascinating Bollywood career. On Filtered Coffee, Avinash Pant of Facebook discusses the changes he sees in the creator ecosystem. If you're interested in the Pegasus spyware scandal, do check out All Things Policy as they dive deep into India's cybersecurity capabilities. On Nan Curry, the guys host Tanveer Lad, international badminton player and host of the Millennial Athlete. They discuss what kind of food is available at the Olympics, an athlete's diet, and a whole lot more. And on This Round Is On Me, learn about the Indian news media from Lakshmi, founder of Splainer Media. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. That's really helpful for us. And finally, we'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Ciat Cred, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber. We really do appreciate the support.
Hi, so we're back and we're going to continue. So welcome back, Suyash. So the next question I want to ask you is regarding China's nuclear capabilities. So I'm sure you already know, but I'm sure everyone also knows that newer missile silos have been found. So what does this indicate of China's nuclear capabilities and their ambitions for the future?
Thanks, Amira. That's a good question regarding missile silos. So China has maintained assured retaliation as a policy for past 40-50 years. they have also maintained or worked on only 20 missile silos for the past 40-50 years. But suddenly in 2021, first 16 silos were found in the Inner Mongolian province. Then around 110 silos were found in Yunnan province, in Yunnan region. And now almost similar numbers of silos were found in Hami in eastern Xinjiang. Also, this weekend there is an additional report about another 100 silos being found. I have not followed it, but together, if we leave the latest reports, there are around now 250 silos. If we consider the latest report, there are around 350 silos. These 100 silos, this number 100 plus to what has been found. But because I have not followed it, I'll just talk about the 250 silos. So this means there is a 10 times increase in what China did previously for past 40-50 years. There are a few theories on why China is doing that. First of all, what are these missile silos? These are the silos in which missiles are to be kept and launched in case of escalation. These missiles could be conventional missiles. These missiles could also be nuclear missiles, or these missiles could be missiles with changing warheads. The most informed guess is that these missiles are for the DF-41 missiles, which are China's longest range ICBM, which could hit the United States of America, which has a potential of reaching the United States of America, continental United States. So what does that mean to China's nuclear policy? I personally think that China's nuclear policy has not changed. It is still assured retaliation. What they are doing is they are just trying to play something called that. They are trying to increase deterrence by playing something which is known as silo game. So what is a silo game? This is something that it's a Cold War terminology. This is something that the United States tried to do in 1960s and 70s and 80s. This is where you create multiple silos. This is done especially when you are a country with less number of warheads. So you create more silos, similar silos, and with equal, and each silo is equidistant from other. You can now fill all silos with a weapon, missile. You can fill some silos with a missile, or you can fill no silos with missile. In case of an escalation, the adversary will assume that all these silos are filled with missile, even if there are no silos filled with missile. And for this, he will have to destroy each and every silo, so that you will not be able to assure the retaliation. And that is why the adversary will end up wasting a lot of conventional and nuclear missiles on these silos, which could be completely empty. So this is how you protect your missiles, and this is how you establish a decoy, and this is how you establish deterrence, credible deterrence. Because with the thinking that the adversary would have to destroy all the silos and use much more weapons for destroying all these silos, adversary could be deterred. This is the underlying logic for establishing more silos. I personally think this is the logic. There are some analysts believing that this is China's move to launch on warning posture. I agree with them that China is moving slowly towards launch on warning, but I don't think the formation of silo in an isolation is a credible fact to establish the point that China is moving to launch on warning. So in a nutshell, China's nuclear policy has not changed. There have been silos found in past 1 year. This is 10 times of what China operated in past 4 or 5 decades. But this is only to establish strategic deterrence.
So, Suyash, now that you've pointed out in all the different ways in which China has been modernizing its PLA forces, whether it's an air or navy or it's in its nuclear capabilities, I want to come to my last question, which is an ongoing and a very pressing issue, which is the China-India border dispute. So how do you see these changes playing out in terms of the dispute, either progressing ahead?
Thanks, Amira. So I'll divide it into 3 sections. Quickly, modernization will definitely impact India. Theaterization will impact India. Joint exercises will impact India, because India and China are in direct standoff on its northern borders and eastern borders. The standoff is not happening in eastern borders, but there is a possibility of escalation there as well. So modernization will definitely impact India. But India, I am sure, has taken, because of the ongoing standoff, India has taken cognizance of it and is also working to modernize its own armed forces. So in India, because of the bureaucracy involved, it will take time. But modernization will impact India. Tibet, Manoj and I are also working on a Tibet paper. So that we'll share that when it is out. It will also show how this modernization, how this improved infrastructure will have an impact on India. So that's point number one. For broader India-China relations, yes, what China is doing in the Indo-Pacific region and also in the Indian Ocean region will definitely impact India. China's inroad into Indian Ocean region will have an implication for India. It will compel India to maybe think about the naval posture that it has adopted. It will also compel India to think what kind of strategy it has to use going forward in the oceans. It will put additional pressure on India to balance its army, the finances towards army and navy, because army is already in standoff with China on the northern and perhaps in the eastern border. And increasing Chinese pressure or inroads into the Indian Ocean region, along with all the things that China is doing along with Pakistan in the Indian Ocean, that would compel India to focus more on navy alongside its army, which is a good thing because India has to pay attention to navy as well. But yes, these two forces would be in strain going forward. In case of missile silos, particularly this development is not of concern to India because this is US centric development, because these missiles these silos are in all probability for the DF-41 missiles, which are the longest range ICBMs, which are intended to deter the United States. But there are other things that India should worry about in case of India-China nuclear dyad. One, China's nuclear ambiguity. Two, China's DF-26 dual-use missiles, 16 of which were found in Hotan, which is on the border near Kashmir, on the upper side of Kashmir. So these are two things on nuclear front that India needs to worry about. In all fairness, both India and China are nuclear no first use countries, so that establishes a threshold of peace. But as Karthik and I have pointed out in our ORF Takshashila discussion document, China's nuclear ambiguity is not taken by Indian scholars seriously. They are taken at the face value. So that is something that India needs to reconsider while creating or re-establishing or recreating its China policy going ahead.
Okay, well, thanks Suyash for joining me on this episode, and we look forward to seeing what happens. And guys, please read Suyash's article in the Times of India. It's really good, and if you want to know more. Thanks, Suyash.
Thanks, Amira.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
आजकल लोग पॉजिटिव शब्द से ही डरते हैं, पर यकीन मानो कोविड के आगे भी दुनिया है जहां पॉजिटिव और सही चीजें जरूरी है। और हमारे देश में जहां-जहां ऐसे काम होते हैं, स्माइल इंडिया मौजूद है। यही समाचार तो ढूंढ कर लाती हूं मैं, शिफा मैत्रा, आपके लिए हर गुरुवार। स्माइल इंडिया आप सुन सकते हो हिंदी और अंग्रेजी में IVM के ऐप पे, वेबसाइट पे या जहां कहीं से भी आप पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो।
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I happen to be a peak performance coach and leadership coach by profession, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, your relationships, professions, careers. So tune in every Monday to unleash your inner power. Be safe, be well, be empowered.